Man, it's a lot of goofy stuff going on in the world beyond goofy. So this hit my timeline, and I had to verify that it was real because I'm not a comic book person. I dabbled into comic books back in the 90s, just borrowing them from the library. But Joel Berry tweeted this. These are frames from the latest DC Joker comic out today. The Joker's the Joker's pregnant. Well, what have we here? I think you're pregnant. I think you're right. Do we have a good OBGYN we use? What? You ready? Ready as I'll ever be, Atomic Skull. That is. I don't know what's going on anymore. So I'm like, okay, they did that. People got their jokes in. I said, let me guess, it's a multiverse, alternate universe. I'm like, this is awkward. It's just straight up awkward. People are like, clever, groundbreaking. We are moving in the right direction. Yeah, that's how I feel. Like I want to cover my eyes. Like there's no reason that's real. I think they're doing that kind of stuff seriously to just trigger people like myself you did trigger me into laughter. That's for sure. I also kind of tweeted and I added Eric July because I had just seen it. It was only 2 hours old from him. I hadn't checked because I was doing my own live. I hadn't checked that Eric had already seen. This is probably way older because he had already did a video. I'm going to react to it. I've not seen it yet. So I'm going to react to it in a second. But I was like, I can imagine Eric seeing me copy him on this. Number one, him thinking, you think you were the first person to copy me on this? If you don't know, Eric July is just, comic book guy. He covers like all this kind of stuff in a way that only Eric July could cover it. So if something like this happens, thousands of people literally will at him. But beyond that, I can imagine him seeing the tweets from me and thousands of people and him thinking, what the hell do you want me to do about this? It's not my comic. I don't talk about these dudes anymore other than making fun of them. I already started out my own comic book fulfillment and distribution companies, basically. He's like, but I would have loved to have paid money to see the look on his face when he first saw it. But let's look at this segment today. I'm going to live stream this. I've not seen this yet. It's 9 minutes, so I'll probably skip around, but I want to hear his reaction to the pregnant Joker. This is going to be good.
Now I got so many tags in Twitter or on Twitter to cover this story. Of course, a lot of people are talking about it because of how goofy it is, but it was so low hanging fruit that I was even considering not doing a video on it.
I bet you the only reason he's doing videos on it is because so many people at him. He's like, what are you going to do? I bet you if nobody had added him, he probably wouldn't even do a video on it because he's got so many other topics. He had a great interview on his channel with two comic book people who I think they run a local comic book shop somewhere. A great interview.
But it's like, what can I offer that I haven't already said, or what can I offer that others aren't saying? I guess the best I could do is try to give context to it. Yes, it is real. So it's not like some, I don't know, fan fiction type of situation. Fan fiction does seem to be better. But this is not that. This is an official DC book that just came out. And I'm going to just show you guys what happened here. So I have some of the pages here. Now, the book is the 4th issue of The Joker, the Man Who Stopped Laughing. It's a story centered around the Joker, and obviously, but that part of the story that people are pointing to in terms of that actual weird image, which I'll show here in a little bit, is not part of like the main story on it. It's like they have it split up and you have like the main story, which is like 20 some pages. And then there's another artist that does like 5 or 6 pages or so of this secondary kind of weird story that they put on the back. Is it canon? Is it? Who knows with DC these days? You can tell just in how kind of goofy the story is anyway.
So it probably was designed to go viral. They knew that it would go viral between the people who are for it, Stunning and Brave, and people like myself who don't even talk about comics that much. Like, whoa, what is this? So very smart. So it's what he say. It's basically not a big main part of the story. It's literally done to trigger, is what it looks like. I'm not an expert here.
DC is not really taking themselves very serious, certainly these days. So, for context, it's this part. It's this. It switches a little bit in terms of what happened at the end of that little arc that they were doing prior.
That art looks whack. I don't like the artistic direction of that. The colors, maybe it's the colors. So they're trying to make it goofy like the Joker with different colors. So maybe like a carnival or something.
Two on the previous pages, and we see Zatanna here, and she of course defeats Joker, and he lands in face first in this mud, and she of course steps on his head, as you can see in this panel right here. I'm not sure why it's not all the way zoomed in, but you can see on this panel right here. So what happens out of that is we go to the next page. He sleeps. He's sleeping in this Wonder Woman comforter. And he wakes up, and his assistant is telling him that he's pregnant. And as you can see, he's got a pot belly. Now, this is where it gets weird. In that this Atomic Skull is, it's a weird image to even like the fact that the editorial staff was like, dude, even if you had made it goofy, it's a comic at the end of the day, and it is Joker. So even if you made it goofy, like you were showing that, hey, he might have been pregnant, you could have did without showing this part right here. And this Atomic Skull is as he would be as if he's at like a gynecologist or something, and he's got his all legs up, and Atomic Skull is just sticking his head in between his legs, and it's like, dude, that's weird. But it is a scene, as you can see right here. It absolutely is a scene in the book, or a panel on the page in the book. It is not made up. It's real. It's bizarre. Now, again, with the text or the context, what ends up happening is that he throws up. You can barely see it. You can see it right here. Let me back out just a little bit. He throws up, and it's like, oh, well, maybe you weren't pregnant. He throws up right here, and he throws up the mud.
Oh, okay.
And the mud is kind of sentient, if you will. And still kind of a weird story. And I will go to the last page.
So you see it, it looks perfectly done to trigger. This is my first time seeing this video. I knew they were doing something goofy to trigger.
Page that I have for you, and it's right here where the mud ends up forming into like a version of himself. Right?
Weird. This is whack.
So yeah, it's like that. What was that movie that Schwarzenegger was in where he was pregnant or whatever? But yeah, it's kind of that whole deal, and it's a pointless story. It's not really anything. It's like, again, it's like 6 pages or something. It's pointless. It's not important at all. But you can see that he has a kid version of himself. Joker does. The company doesn't take itself serious. I say DC stands for Dead Company because that's what, to me, it stands for. It's a pointless book. And this is what I talk about all the time about what's going on with DC and Marvel as well, where they're just giving books to anybody, telling any goofy story. Mm-hmm. And a lot of this don't matter. Like, you could read this part of the book and you're like, what in the hell just happened? What is this? Why did you purchase this? Are the questions that you're generally going to ask. But it's because they believe more in the quantity as opposed to the quality situation. Mm-hmm. And so you have a lot of little pointless side limited series books here and there, and constant reboots. And we know DC is going all in on like this omniverse, well, the multiverses have a multiverse. And it seems to be an effort to just give books to any old body, and you can write for DC a book. The lines are so blurred as far as what's canon, what's officially canon, and what's not. And a lot of these weird writers are telling these goofy stories, but it's because DC's just giving them to them. They're not sending their best. They're not hiring the best guys for the job or anything of that nature. It's just giving guys goofy stories. And yes, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like this is the first goofy story that's happened by DC. Even surrounding the Joker, we've covered some of the goofy stories that had happened over.
I'm going to keep this going and give you my conclusion, my takeaway after he's done.
Over the years, pointless books. But I think, to me, if there's anything, I can sit here, that's the easy part, rag on, okay, why is this whole panel is bizarre, and that is an easy thing to do. But I more so would like to just reiterate how the book is in itself. The issue is just the entire issue is pointless. I guess you can say a little more is going on with this Joker. Definitely, if you read the first part of it, I'm not going to sit up here and spoil that part of it. I guess it has a little more meaning than what this part has, but still, these aren't stories that really matter. So you'll read this and forget about it, and none of the events are going to mean anything. Hell, definitely knowing DC, they'll be retconned out. If it even exists in the main timeline, it'll be retconned out of existence before you know it, because these stories aren't meant for readers anymore that are keeping up with it, because you'd waste your money for sure if you had purchased this, or if you had this a part of your pull list, because nothing's going on. Nothing going on is going on of importance. It's far more important, I guess, in the first half of it, but definitely this bit, it's just filler, right? It's just a nonsensical little 6 pages that they put in to make a book a little bigger to charge you $6 for it. But other than that, because I think it's like the entire book, the first part of the story is like 26 pages, 25 pages or something like that. And I think it has a couple of ads in there maybe, but I think it's like 25 pages. And then the entire book is like over 30 pages because it includes this bizarre part, which isn't that long at all. So you're giving your audience these bizarre books that don't really matter, and you're expecting them to invest in it. And I think that's where Marvel and DC, and this is just one of the latest examples of it, but this is where they fail their audience and they fail their customers, in that they continue to give you material that doesn't matter. It's meaningless, it's weird, it's pointless, it's bizarre, and you can tell that it's more of a free-for-all over there these days.
So that's a Young July's take on it. Good take as usual. So my takeaway is there's a lot of parallels between what's happening in entertainment and comic books. Believe it or not, maybe I'm just weird. I got my Steve Urkel glasses on. Maybe I'm feeling weird, but I think there's a lot of comparison between what's going on there and what's going on in politics, what's going on in schools. Believe it or not. I saw this clip here about Baltimore schools. I was watching this clip. It's from 2018, but how terrible the schools were. You've got people in high school that are, can't read at a 4th grade level, and they got passed through. But they do get taught this goofy ass. I mean, I think that, now that he showed the panel, looks like they were trying to make fun of the men pregnant stuff, not like they were trying to promote it, but looking bigger picture, not looking at this panel, because they baited me and got me. But bigger picture, these race swaps, you got the Superman's son, who's of course gay, you've got all this stuff going on, and you could just make new characters, but no, it's just the goofiness is more important than the substance. And that's important because when, Andrew Tate talked about it, when you talk about the power of being able to tell somebody you're in a pandemic, you need to muzzle yourself. And you look around and you're like, wait a second. People are wearing like dirty muzzles. They're not even clean. They literally cut a sock up and put it over their mouth. What's happening? Why are we doing this? Just as goofy as a side story as that, has no substance. It's meant to just distract you. Not talking about the Joker piece again, taking it to the bigger picture. It's just meant to say we control you. We tell you what to enjoy, what not to enjoy. Same thing that's happening with the speaker. It's so goofy. You don't have the votes. So pick somebody else. What's the substance? If you're really about the party, then you would be the biggest advocate on the sideline. Nope. You do what I tell you to do. It's a very passive form of coercion, in my opinion. But I thought that was hilarious. Props to them. I have to read the book, but actually now looking at it, props to them to say, hey, I'm going to put in this little culture war stuff, even though it's, sound like it wasn't a part of the main story. Let me sneak in this little culture war stuff and see what happens. What do people do with it? Let me know what you think. Take care.